Have you ever found yourself saying yes to a request before the person even finished asking, only to feel a sinking pit of dread in your stomach the moment the words left your lips? It is a curious, almost mechanical reflex, a betrayal of the self that happens in real time, yet feels entirely outside of our conscious control. We often frame this behavior as kindness, or perhaps a surplus of empathy, but beneath the surface of the world's nicest person lies a complex, often grueling psychological architecture built on a foundation of fear. To understand the chronic people-pleaser is to look past the polite smiles and the eager-to-help attitude, and instead peer into a world where personal boundaries are viewed as threats, and where the self is a currency spent to buy a fleeting sense of safety. At its core, chronic people-pleasing is not a personality trait, but a survival strategy. In the wild, isolation usually meant death. For the human infant, isolation literally means death. We are wired to seek connection, but for the people-pleaser, this wiring has been tuned to a frequency of hypervigilance. While most people navigate social interactions with a general desire to be liked, the chronic pleaser operates on a different internal logic. If I am not useful, I am not safe. This is often rooted in what psychologists call the fawn response. We are all familiar with fight, flight, and freeze. But fawning is the fourth, more subtle dimension of the trauma response. It is the act of appeasing a perceived threat to avoid conflict. When a child learns that their parent's emotional stability depends on the child's compliance, the child stops developing a self and starts developing a radar. They become master decoders of microexpressions, tone, and atmosphere, always adjusting their shape to fit the container they are placed in. To understand the sheer weight of this radar, we have to look at the environment where it was forged. Imagine a home where love is not a given, but a reward for good behavior. In these settings, the child becomes the emotional thermostat for the family. If a parent is angry, the child shrinks. If a parent is sad, the child becomes the entertainer. They learn early on that their own needs are an inconvenience, a disruption to the fragile peace of the household. This creates a psychic split. The authentic self is buried deep in the basement, while the performing self is sent out to manage the world. This performer is tireless, polite, and infinitely flexible, but they are also a ghost. They don't actually exist. They are simply a collection of responses designed to keep the peace. Over decades, this becomes an automated script. The adult people-pleaser isn't choosing to be nice. They are running an ancient software program designed to keep them from being cast out of the tribe. This shapeshifting comes at a devastating cost: the erasure of identity. If you spend your entire life being who others need you to be, who are you when you are alone? For many chronic pleasers, the answer is a terrifying void. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes not from physical labor, but from the constant upkeep of a curated persona. It is the performance of niceness. Because this niceness is driven by an avoidant fear of rejection rather than genuine altruism, it eventually curdles into resentment. You begin to loathe the very people you are helping, not because they are necessarily demanding, but because you feel enslaved by your own inability to say no. You are a volunteer who feels like a victim, trapped in a prison where you hold the keys but are too afraid to turn the lock. This resentment is the shadow self growing in the dark, a reservoir of unspoken anger that occasionally leaks out as passive aggression or total burnout. This dynamic is perhaps most visible and most damaging in the professional sphere. In an office or a creative studio, the people-pleaser is often the reliable one. They are the person who takes on the extra shift, the colleague who fixes everyone else's mistakes, and the one who never complains about the workload. On the surface, they are the model employee, but beneath that, they are drowning. Because they cannot set boundaries, they become a magnet for emotional vampires and exploitative management. They trade their time, their health, and their creative energy for the hollow praise of being easy to work with. Over time, this leads to a specific kind of burnout that isn't caused by the work itself, but by the loss of agency. When your yes isn't a choice, but a requirement, work becomes a series of obligations that slowly drain your soul. They are the first to be overworked and the last to be promoted to leadership, because leaders often require the ability to hold uncomfortable ground, something the pleaser is biologically averse to doing. We must also confront the uncomfortable truth that people-pleasing is, in a paradoxical way, a form of manipulation. This is a bitter pill for many to swallow. We like to think of ourselves as selfless, but when we withhold our true opinions, hide our needs, and manage the emotions of others by telling them what they want to hear, we are denying them the truth. we are not giving them the real us. We are giving them a carefully managed version designed to produce a specific outcome, their approval. It is a form of social dishonesty. By never allowing conflict to occur, we prevent relationships from ever reaching true intimacy. Intimacy requires the friction of two distinct identities rubbing against each other. Without the ability to disagree, there is no real connection, only a mirror reflecting back what the other person wants to see. The niceness becomes a wall that keeps everyone at a safe distance. The biology of this behavior is equally fascinating. Every time a chronic pleaser successfully avoids a conflict or gains a nod of approval, their brain receives a hit of dopamine, coupled with a temporary drop in cortisol. It is an addictive cycle. However, the long-term physiological impact is profound. Living in a state of constant scanning for potential disapproval keeps the nervous system in a state of low-grade chronic stress. This is why many people pleasers suffer from unexplained physical ailments, chronic fatigue, digestive issues, or tension headaches. The body is literally keeping the score of the boundaries that have been crossed and the anger that has been swallowed. The immune system itself begins to falter under the weight of suppressed emotions. When you don't use your voice to say no, your body often finds a way to say it for you through illness or exhaustion. Furthermore, we live in a culture that fetishizes self-sacrifice, particularly for certain demographics. Society often praises the woman who does it all or the loyal company man, conflating a lack of boundaries with a surplus of character. This cultural conditioning acts as a second layer of the prison. We are taught that to be good is to be quiet, accommodating, and self-effacing. For the chronic pleaser, these societal norms provide a convenient excuse to avoid the terrifying work of self-assertion. They can hide their fear of rejection behind a mask of virtuousness. But true virtue requires a choice. If you cannot say no, your yes has no moral value. It is merely a compulsion. In the modern era, social media has amplified the people-pleasing impulse to an industrial scale. We are now pleasing audiences of thousands of strangers. The like button is the digital equivalent of that quick hit of dopamine the pleaser used to get from a parent's smile. We curate our lives, our opinions, and even our struggles to ensure they are consumable and palatable to the digital collective. This leads to a new form of fragmentation. We are not just performing for those in the room, but for a global gaze that never sleeps. The pressure to be liked has moved from a social preference to a 24/7 existential requirement. Breaking free from this cycle requires more than just a willpower to say no. It requires a fundamental restructuring of one's self-worth. It involves the agonizing process of learning to tolerate the discomfort of someone being disappointed in you. For a chronic pleaser, someone else's disappointment feels like an existential crisis, a siren blaring in the dark. Recovery means sitting with that siren and realizing that the world does not end. It means understanding that no is a complete sentence that requires no justification. It involves moving from a state of identity osmosis, where you absorb the emotions of everyone around you, to a state of differentiation, where you can feel your own feelings even when they contradict the room. The first step in this revolution is the pause. Between the request and the yes, there is a space. In that space lies your freedom. It's the 3 seconds where you check in with your body. Does your chest tighten? Does your stomach knot? That is your body's no, and learning to honor that physical signal is the beginning of reclaiming your life. It also means accepting that some people will leave your life when you stop pleasing them. This is the hardest part of the process. You will realize that some of your relationships were built entirely on your subservience. When you stand up, those who liked you better when you were small will naturally fall away. But those who remain, and those you meet as your true self, will provide a level of connection that pleasing could never achieve. Ultimately, the journey out of chronic people-pleasing is a journey toward authenticity. It is the realization that being liked is a poor substitute for being known. To be known is to be seen in your entirety, including your selfishness, your anger, your fatigue, and your boundaries. It is only when we stop being nice that we can finally become kind. Genuine kindness is a choice made from a position of strength and self-possession, whereas people-pleasing is a compulsion made from a position of fear. The moment you decide to stop being everyone's favorite mirror is the moment you finally start to exist as a person. It is a quiet, terrifying, and beautiful revolution of the soul. If you like this or it resonates with you, please like and subscribe. We need your support to see that you enjoy our content. It's our sign to keep going and bring you even more stories.